basically wanted
What can I
to
say
take
about
this
this?
opportunity as a joint reflection.
Walking hand in hand via FaceTime calls and texts, Sama Russell and I took on a formal exploration into her life through a diasporic telescope concealed in the syllabus of Film 402. This exploration had a relative purpose, because our conversations were framed or internalized with the purpose of a specific articulation.
I think growing up in a Persian environment, I really had to think about the specific details, like you said, of my personal life, because I feel like I kind of grew up in a community where so many people had the same experiences as I did.
Differing from our past discussions on family, identity, culture, and the understanding of oneself, these conversations were pointed in a specific direction.
یک پیاز
While this may seem to have resulted in limited or curated conclusions, I think it had the opposite effect.
One of the lines you wrote was after their adolescence, after their experience adolescence.
With a pointed sense of direction, I think we could dive deep into the waters of Sama's reflections, internal battles, and understandings of who Sama Russell is when you put diaspora in her eyesight.
I was like, that's interesting. I started from 6, my parents started from, 40.
سیر روغن زیتون
The disconnection that I felt, like you said, just throughout the years, and you being kind of you being a direct set of eyes experiencing it and picking up on things that maybe I didn't pick up on,
نمک فلفل زردچوبه پیاز و سیر رو قاچ کن و بذار توی مایتابه و زیر 1/2 درجه شروع کن بپز.
What did diaspora mean to Sama when confronted with the word in relation to her? I don't think I'd learned what the word diaspora meant until last year. Diaspora was no longer separate from her being, and instead it became conjoined into it.
بعد از 4 دقیقه روغن زیتون اضافه کن و هم بزن.
Sama Russell's diasporic experience could have easily been the title of my first assignment if I didn't want to honor the narrative I observed. This journey being her path of subtly rejecting the Persian cultural identity, the one so very tied to her sense of self, and subsequently growing to embrace it.
Growing up, I was like, there's so many positive sides in being Persian, or being a part of me.
I still kind of struggle with, I still am trying to, I guess, understand it. It's more just the biggest question of who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And I think as I'm trying to, live out life and try to be happy in everything that I do, I just try to bring the best parts of both my identities and try to mesh it into my being,
Yeah.
وقتی که سیر و پیاز یکم پختن نمک اضافه کن، فلفل اضافه کن و زردچوبه رو اضافه کن.
The second checkpoint required me to utilize my observational skills we all hold within us. I was to observe a space, writing or reflecting on its potential relationships to diaspora, homeland, or memory. this wasn't such a daunting task. In the light of placing Sama at the forefront of how I began to think of this class, I was already in this observational role. Sama and I have been attached at the hip, as they say, for well over 11 years. We joke that we share half the same brain, but I think this could be true in many senses as our cerebral developed alongside one another. Thus, I've been observing Sama to varying degrees during this entire decade.
بعد کدوات رو قاچ کن و اضافه کن و با سیر و پیاز هم بزن.
I think I've been both an observer and participant in the externalized aspects of Sama's identity as a Persian Canadian woman. I've been a participant in that over the years I've been exposed to Sama's culture in various ways, especially through the times I've spent with her family. She would playfully teach me Farsi words, which, albeit stumbling through, helped in the small moments when speaking to her family still in Iran.
در رو بذار روی مایتابه و زیر گرمایش کم برای 10 تا 15 دقیقه بپز.
This has further manifested specifically around the practice of enjoying and sharing food. This has been a point of entry, so to speak, wherein Sama and her family extended their hands outwards, embracing me in their dinners and celebrations.
But I feel like also food is such a way.
Something that lets me exist in both categories is the way in which Sama, 1, uses food as an act of giving, an act of love, and 2, that she uses food as a means to honor or reconnect with her Persian culture and roots. That being a reason for me to call my dad and be like, hey, how do I make this? And just like us talking about it, and then him being like, oh, like your grandma likes to put a little bit of this into it to like make it taste like a little. This dish is the recipe of Sama's grandmother, passed down from her to her father Mehdi and to Sama. I'm quite grateful to be an extension of this chain, and I hope I've done it justice. Traditionally, the custom is to eat on a sofre, a traditional tablecloth used for dining. I used to see pictures from Sama's childhood or from her visits there. I don't have access to a sofre, but I will be using a crocheted blanket made by my sister. The meanings of the word was originally food that is prepared for travelers or for a journey. So I think it fits quite well in the concluding aspects of the journey I've taken with Sama. Rather than residing as an observer or a participant who only receives, I think it's time to participate on my own. This is my thank you to Sama Russell for inviting me in, allowing me to be both an observer and participant over the last decade, and for being the subject of my exploration. This is dedicated to her and her family.